Members of the Trump administration and Trump family have found a new way to try to get people to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And it is, if you try to link me to Jeffrey Epstein, I'm literally going to sue you for $1 billion.
Maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That's not going to happen.
Hunter Biden has never been shy about stirring controversy, but this time, he's gone head-to-head with someone who almost no one dares to challenge, the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. At the center of it all is a shocking claim linking her to one of the most infamous figures of the last 2 decades, Jeffrey Epstein. The fallout? A lawsuit threat worth an eye-watering $1 billion. Now, here's the wild part. Even with that massive legal hammer hanging over his head, Hunter Biden isn't backing down. In fact, he's doubling down. When pressed in an interview to apologize directly to Melania for repeating those explosive allegations, Biden's response was blunt, almost dismissive. That's not going to happen. So, what exactly is going on here? Why has Hunter Biden decided to risk everything by refusing to walk back his words? And why is Melania Trump, usually private and calculated, pushing forward with such an aggressive legal threat? This isn't just a celebrity squabble or political drama. It's a collision of powerful families, high-profile reputations, and one name that still sends shockwaves across the internet: Epstein. And depending on how this unfolds, it could spiral into one of the most talked-about defamation battles in recent memory. But before we jump to what's happening now, let's break down how this feud exploded in the first place and why neither side seems willing to blink. When the First Lady's legal team decided to respond, they didn't hold back. According to reports, Melania Trump's lawyers fired off a letter that read less like a warning and more like a declaration of war. The message was crystal clear: take down the interview, issue a public apology, and stop spreading the claim, or face a $1 billion lawsuit. Think about that for a second. $1 billion. That's the kind of figure you usually hear in corporate mergers or Wall Street deals, not in a personal defamation case. But Melania's team wasn't just throwing out a number for shock value. They were making a point. They wanted everyone, especially Hunter Biden, to understand the scale of the damage they believe these allegations have caused. The letter described Biden's comments as false, disparaging, defamatory, and inflammatory. Strong words, but in legal terms, that's about as direct as it gets. And they didn't stop there. They argued that the interview and its reposts had been viewed by tens of millions worldwide, spreading doubt, fueling rumors, and, according to Melania's lawyers, causing overwhelming financial and reputational harm. In other words, they're saying this isn't just gossip, it's a smear that could tarnish her image on a global scale. And if Hunter refuses to back down, Melania's team insists they're ready to drag the fight into court, no matter the cost. But here's where it gets even more intense. Hunter Biden's reaction to all of this wasn't fear, hesitation, or even silence. Instead, it was something no one expected. For most people, the threat of $1 billion lawsuit would be enough to send them scrambling for damage control. But Hunter Biden? He brushed it off almost instantly. When asked directly if he'd consider apologizing to Melania, his answer came fast and sharp: that's not going to happen. No hesitation. No softening his words. Just a flat refusal. And in that moment, it became clear this wasn't going to be a quiet retreat or a quick settlement. Hunter wasn't just standing his ground. He was challenging Melania Trump's team head-on. He went further, describing them as bullies who thought they could intimidate him with a giant lawsuit. To him, that billion-dollar figure wasn't terrifying, it was almost laughable. He suggested that no amount of legal threats would make him take back what he said. The way Hunter framed it, apologizing wasn't even on the table. He made it sound like backing down would be a betrayal of principle, and instead of retreating, he seemed almost energized by the fight. It was a bold move, but also a risky one. Because by refusing to apologize, Hunter wasn't just dismissing Melania's lawyers, he was daring them to take the next step. And that brings us to the core of this entire feud, the explosive allegation that set everything in motion. At the center of this storm is a claim so volatile it was bound to spark headlines. Hunter Biden suggested that Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier whose name is tied to scandal after scandal, was the one who introduced Melania Trump to Donald Trump. That single connection, whether true or not, is enough to ignite outrage. Epstein's name carries heavy baggage, and dragging the First Lady into that web instantly raises the stakes. Hunter didn't present it as fact, but repeating the claim on camera gave it new oxygen, and once it hit the internet, it spread like wildfire. Melania Trump's side immediately pushed back, calling the allegation a complete fabrication. They point to her own account, written in her 2024 memoir, where she detailed first meeting Donald at New York City's Kit Kat Club in 1998. According to her, there was no Epstein, no hidden introduction, just a chance encounter that eventually led to marriage, a White House, and a family. But Hunter's version of events challenges that polished narrative, and that's where the fire comes in. Because even when a claim is disputed, once it's tied to Epstein's name, it becomes toxic. Millions of viewers heard it, repeated it, and debated it, and for Melania, that's exactly the kind of association she says causes irreparable harm. To her lawyers, this isn't just a baseless rumor. It's defamation on a global scale. But for Hunter, the Epstein connection is exactly why he refuses to apologize. He sees it as a question that deserves to be aired out, no matter how controversial it sounds. And that's why Melania's legal team hit back so aggressively. They weren't just protecting her story, they were trying to shut down any link, real or imagined, between the First Lady and Epstein. But what exactly is her team arguing? And why are they willing to put $1 billion price tag on silencing this claim? From Melania Trump's perspective, this isn't just an offhand comment. It's a direct attack on her reputation, and her legal team is treating it with the seriousness of a full-scale assault. In their letter, they don't mince words. They call Hunter's allegation false, disparaging, defamatory, and inflammatory. Those aren't casual descriptors. Those are the exact terms lawyers use when they're preparing to go to war in court. Their case boils down to one central argument. Hunter Biden's claim didn't just spread a rumor, it caused measurable harm. They argue that the interview, along with countless reposts and clips circulating online, has been seen by tens of millions of people around the world. Every one of those views, they say, chipped away at Melania's image, linking her name to one of the darkest scandals in recent history. And the damage isn't just personal, it's financial. The letter accuses Hunter's words of inflicting overwhelming financial and reputational harm to the First Lady. In other words, they believe his claim doesn't just hurt her socially, it has the potential to cost her opportunities, brand value, and influence that carry real dollar signs. That's where the jaw-dropping figure comes in. $1 billion. It's not just a lawsuit threat, it's a statement. Melania's team is essentially saying, the damage is so catastrophic, the only number that reflects it is 10 figures. Whether or not a court would ever award that kind of money, the symbolism is undeniable. They're making an example out of Hunter, warning anyone else who might repeat the claim that this isn't a rumor you can spread without consequences. But here's the twist. Instead of backing down, Hunter Biden flipped the entire situation on its head. He didn't just shrug off the lawsuit threat, he practically invited it. Most people, when threatened with $1 billion lawsuit, would either lawyer up or disappear from the spotlight. But Hunter Biden? He chose a completely different path. He dared them to take it further. In his sit-down with Andrew Callahan, Hunter didn't just say he wouldn't apologize, he went a step further, turning the tables on Melania and Donald Trump. His message was clear: if the Trumps want to drag this into court, then let's do it in the open. He even suggested depositions, saying he'd gladly provide a platform where Melania, Donald, and all of Epstein's known associates could sit down and clarify exactly what kind of connections existed at the time. It wasn't just defiance, it was a counter-challenge. Instead of being intimidated, Hunter positioned himself as the one calling for transparency, as if he were holding the door open for an uncomfortable truth to come spilling out. And he did it in a way that suggested confidence, almost daring the first family to risk exposing themselves to deeper scrutiny. This is where the story shifts from a legal threat to something much bigger, a public showdown. Hunter is effectively saying, if you want to play this game, I'll meet you in court, and I'll make sure the questions you don't want asked are the ones everyone hears. It's a high-stakes gamble, because while Melania's team is framing this as defamation, Hunter is reframing it as a battle over who's willing to tell the truth. And that's when Donald Trump himself finally stepped in. Up until this point, it was mostly Melania's legal team trading blows with Hunter Biden. But once the story picked up steam, Donald Trump himself couldn't stay quiet. And when he finally spoke, he didn't just defend Melania, he backed her lawsuit push with his trademark confidence. In an interview with Fox News radio host Brian Kilmeade, Trump made it clear, go forward. That was his message to Melania about the lawsuit. According to him, he's had recent success in other legal battles, and this one, in his eyes, was no different. To Trump, Hunter's claim wasn't just false, it was one more example of people making up stories to drag his family through the mud. And when it came to the Epstein angle, Trump was blunt. Jeffrey Epstein has nothing to do with Melania and I introducing. He brushed off Hunter's suggestion as pure fiction, saying the real story was much simpler and already well documented. For Trump, this isn't just about defending Melania's reputation, it's about protecting the narrative of how their relationship began. The Trumps have always maintained that their meeting was a New York love story, not something tainted by Epstein's shadow. But here's where things get even more complicated. While Trump insists the connection is fabricated, Hunter's refusal to apologize keeps the rumor alive. And in the court of public opinion, once a claim like this spreads, it doesn't easily disappear. Still, Melania has her own version of events, and she put it in writing long before this controversy erupted. Long before this legal drama exploded, Melania Trump had already told her version of events. In her 2024 memoir, she detailed the night she first met Donald Trump, and there was no mention of Jeffrey Epstein anywhere in the story. According to Melania, it was 1998 at New York City's Kit Kat Club, a hotspot filled with celebrities, models, and the kind of Manhattan nightlife energy that seemed to follow Trump everywhere. She describes that night as the beginning of everything, a chance meeting that turned into a phone number exchange, then a courtship, and eventually, a marriage 6 years later. From her perspective, it's a straightforward love story. No Epstein, no hidden introductions. Just fate, timing, and the spark that would eventually make her the First Lady of the United States. By 2004, Melania and Donald were married, and not long after, they welcomed their son Barron, who's now a student at NYU. For Melania, that's the real timeline, the one she's put in writing and stood by ever since. And that's what makes Hunter Biden's claims so explosive. His version doesn't just challenge a detail, it undermines the foundation of Melania's personal narrative. Instead of a glamorous Manhattan encounter, it paints a darker, more controversial backdrop involving one of the most infamous names of the century. So now, two very different stories are colliding in public. Melania's official version, carefully documented in her memoir, versus Hunter's allegation, casually dropped in an interview, but amplified to millions online. And with both sides refusing to give an inch, the real question becomes, where does this all lead? At this point, the battle lines are drawn. On one side, Melania Trump and her legal team, armed with $1 billion lawsuit threat and a clear demand, take it back or pay the price. On the other, Hunter Biden, standing firm, refusing to apologize, and almost daring the first family to push the fight into the courtroom. The stakes couldn't be higher. For Melania, it's about protecting her reputation from being permanently tied to Jeffrey Epstein's shadow. For Hunter, it's about refusing to be silenced, no matter how much money or power is thrown at him. And caught in the middle is the public, watching, debating, speculating. Because once a rumor spreads to millions of people online, even the strongest denials can't erase it completely. So what happens next? Will this explode into one of the most high-profile defamation cases in modern political history? Or will it quietly fizzle out, overshadowed by the next big controversy? One thing is certain, with names like Trump, Biden, and Epstein all tangled into the same headline. This story isn't going away anytime soon. And the longer neither side blinks, the closer it edges toward a courtroom showdown that could reveal far more than anyone expects.